Hey, what's up, you guys? Jeff Cohn here with another episode of the Team Building Podcast, where we interview top team leaders, broker owners, and thought leaders from across the country. Today, I have a very special guest, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Matthew Johnson. Matt, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for turning that around on me. That's very kind.
I had to turn it around. Matt's only introduced me probably 100 times on the show the first couple of years. Matt and I used to co-host the Team Building Podcast, and I give him and Pursuing Results the credit for launching our podcast, I think all the way back in 2015. And we've now interviewed over 200 episodes. We average around 180,000 downloads a year. Each episode, I think, is anywhere between 3,000 and 5,000 downloads, and it's specific to teams. And as a lot of our audience members know, not just real estate teams, we're now trying to get more into ancillary businesses, including mortgage, title, insurance, investing, and all of the things that are going to help us become the best versions of ourselves. So Matt just recently wrote a book, I think it's probably been a year or two ago, called Microfamous. And I was just asking him offline. We always have a nice little chat before we do our recordings, a little bit about what inspired the book. And then, of course, what the intent of the book is. And I know for all of those big egoed agents listening to the podcast today, we all think of ourselves as microfamous, right? Walking down the street, we're always going to run into people that know us and they've done a deal with us, or they know we're in real estate. But if you go on a vacation, typically no one's going to know you. And that's, I think, the idea behind being microfamous. So Matt, why don't you share a little bit more about the book, what someone could learn from reading it, and kind of what you feel was the big motivating factor for wanting to write it?
Well, I would say the inspiration of it was guys like you and Greg Harrelson, who's spoken at the team building summit in the past and has been a client as well. And I was watching, just from being in the real estate space and co-hosting a bunch of different podcasts in that space over the years, I would watch people like you and Greg Harrelson and stuff like that go to events and be mobbed and have, tons of people asking your opinion, asking for autographs, frankly, and, taking pictures and stuff like that. But then you can go to the grocery store and nobody bothers you. I mean, maybe it was a little bit different when you were like actively selling real estate in Omaha, but now, you're so far out of that day to day that nobody bothers you when you go to the grocery store. You can kind of go about your life and you don't have to be cognizant of other people being aware of who you are. You can just go about your life. But when you step into the realms where you want to be famous, you are. And to me, we're kind of stepping into an age where that's available. It's possible. And now that it's possible, people are realizing, hey, I'd much rather have that than to either be obscure or to be mega, Tom Cruise famous.
100%. It brings me back to the Matrix. If you remember the scene, there's a gentleman in the Matrix that's bribed by the computers. And he is offered any type of life he wants. And he said, I want to be important. I want to be famous. And I can say, obviously I don't see myself as a celebrity in any way, but I do feel like when I go to events, people are really excited to see me. It's kind of awkward. I got into an elevator probably 5 years ago, and this gentleman's just staring at me. And I'm like, hey man, what's up? He's like, hi. And I thought he was glitching out. I'm like, what's up, dude? Like, are you good? He's like, are you Jeff Cohn? And I think it's a joke. I thought he was joking. I didn't know I was successful. I did air quotes for anyone listening. I didn't know that I was who I was at that point. And I thought he was being condescending. Like, are you Jeff Cohn? Like, just kind of teasing me.
Oh, okay.
And he asked me for my autograph. And I was with an admin person who I just hired to kind of be my marketing person. And she would rolls her eyes. Like, are you kidding me? Is this really happening? And then ever since then, I've been more cognizant. I'm like, wow, this is neat, because when you help people, you're always giving and they listen to all your podcasts. And this is people listening right now, probably nodding their heads. They feel like they know you and they trust you and they like you because they've spent hundreds of hours with you. But I've never met this person.
Yes, exactly.
And so it's really awkward, to be honest. It's awkward. It can be awkward. So when you approach me, I would like to invite you. I'm just a dude. I mean, that from the podcast. So just say, hey, I listen to podcasts. I've listened to all of them. You guys are awesome. Thank you for everything you've done. That's all I want. You don't want more than that. Anything more than that.
Yeah, it gets creepy. Yeah, exactly. And I think for anyone that's selling real estate, you kind of have to make the decision as a team leader. Do you want that kind of attention for yourself? In which case, maybe your face is the one that goes on the billboards, or do you want to be so out of it that you focus all the attention on your team and everything is very team oriented? That's a big decision. I remember sitting with you in, I think it was expansion systems training. Do you remember that years ago in Austin?
Yeah, I do remember going to that.
And
Andy and Kevin.
Yes. And the gal that led that had an interesting marketing problem, which is she had moved and started a new team in a new state and was having trouble restarting the marketing in the new state because all of the previous marketing for her team was all based around her. So she thought, okay, well, I'll just, kind of copy that over into this new market. And it just wasn't working. Well, not to the point where she wanted it to work,
right.
Which is a good lesson. And you have to decide what is it that you want to be microfamous? Is it you as the team leader, and will you always be in that role of team leader, or are you going to deflect attention away from you and towards the team? Jeff, I mean, that's basically, you made that decision a long time ago, and locally now, you don't have to worry about whether someone runs into you at the grocery store and goes, "Hey, Aunt Sally's selling her home. Can you go meet with her?" Which is like, right. You don't want to get that. You don't want to get that at right. the grocery store. So I think that's an important decision people have to make is are you microfamous, or is the team microfamous? And you can have either one, but you have to choose which one you're going to go after, because then you have to decide who, if you're going to buy billboards and bus benches and emails that go out, who stars in the videos, who's hosting the podcast. Maybe you want to start shining that spotlight on a mix of people in the team so that the team gets the spotlight, because that's infinitely more scalable than you getting all the spotlight. So like in the world that I run in with guys like you, Jeff, like people that are selling coaching and consulting, and they're speaking on stage and they're writing books, almost by default, you have to be the one that's microfamous. But if you're a team leader at the local level, you actually can decide. It doesn't have to be you in your face. You can shine the spotlight on your team.
Well, what's really interesting, I agree with everything you just said. You have to decide what's your future, your active role versus your passive role in each business that you own and or acquire. So if you having an active role and being microfamous is going to help you accomplish what your personal goal is, then you need to put yourself on that pedestal. For me personally, I was microfamous, I would say, in my own right or respect in Omaha while I sold full-time from 2006 to 2014. But I started to recognize in 2011 the pain that by being microfamous created, in the sense that anyone I saw anywhere, I was thinking real estate, my next deal. I was thinking the next referral. Everyone I'd buy meals. My rule was if I saw a person that had ever bought, sold, or referred to me, I'd walk up to their table and pay for their meal. And so there was this pressure that when I was in a state where I should have been just relaxed and going out to dinner or taking my kids to a park, I was on all the time. Microfamous. I got to be the guy. I got to get the deal. I got to get the next referral. And I know the people listening are going, yes, I get it. Like there's a lot of pressure. You're losing out 20 grand if you don't get that next deal. And in 2011, that's when it all changed for me. And I was like, you know what? I don't like this pressure. January 1 rolls around. I'm the top guy. I want to keep having success, but I don't want to be the one having to sacrifice everything to be able to do that. That's why I built the team. And out of the gate, I decided I don't want to be the microfamous person in Omaha when it comes to selling real estate. And that's where 4 years later, I did want to be microfamous, but not in Omaha. I wanted to be microfamous on a national level to promote the idea of teams and to promote the coaching company, to promote the ancillary businesses that I'm still doing to this day. And that brings me a lot more passion and I guess more reward and pleasure, because it's creating more impact and effect for more people across the country rather than just the one location in the United States. But there's no one right way or wrong way. Each person just needs to decide what their appetite is for, what they enjoy doing. I know there's a lot of people that still like to sell. They always see themselves selling. Great. You could be microfamous and still refer deals to your team. You could be not microfamous and still refer deals to your team. So when our team launched, we were the Cone team and our tagline was Omaha's Elite Real Estate Group. So in 11, we killed the cones and just became the tagline. And I did that because I didn't want to be the guy anymore. Omaha's Elite Real Estate Group. No one's asking for Jeff Cone. The Cone team, everyone's asking for Jeff, Mark, or Renee Cone.
Yep.
So there are ways to pivot.
And we took that same lesson. So I don't know if anybody knows this, I'll cover it briefly, but the reason the team building podcast has its name and it's not called the $1 Million Real Estate Team, or it's like something like you would swear to God, how in the world do we build a successful real estate podcast without real estate in the title? Well, it's because when you and I were hanging out in 2015, 2016 or whatever, like you could already see that you were on a trajectory that was going to carry you past caring deeply and passionately about real estate teams. So we wanted to set you up to speak at wealth building events and speak at business events and talk about entrepreneurship. And the thing that I felt where you had the most unique point of view and perspective to bring to people was on the building, construction, and management and leadership of teams. And like you said, like you're doing now, you're expanding that into other teams, mortgage and ancillary services and stuff. So it's, the reason that we named the team building podcast was so that we didn't get pigeonholed into just real estate, because I knew you were bigger than that. That's cool. And you were going on that trajectory. So you have a decision to make, what you want to be microfamous for, but at the core of it, microfamous means to be famously influential to the right people. That's it. You get to decide who the right people are, how big of a group that is. And then you get to decide how famous and how influential do you want to be by how you put yourself out there and the type of content that you put out. But I think for people that are at your level, Jeff, and for anyone that's in like a team leadership role, it comes down to that influential part. Like when you speak, if people don't listen, it gets real old real quick. It's the influence part is really, really, really important. And if you have a lot of money, like if you have the money stuff taken care of, it all of a sudden frees you up for more important, deeper priorities. And that ability to influence people is one of them. And to me, that's what we're seeing is we're seeing that deeper yearning to where it's like, okay, great. You can make the money you want. And now money is no longer an issue. Now, what do I want? Well, it's like, I want to influence people. When I speak, I want people to go, man, that's really good. Let me go implement that. And let's go see some results. And then you want to see the results. If people don't listen to you when you speak, they don't get results and you don't get the satisfaction. So it's all about, at the end of the day, it's about influence and spreading that influence to as many of the right people as possible, however you define the right people.
I love it. And that is 100% truth for me. When I have someone come up to me and say, hey, I listened to the podcast, my follow-up is always, what was your favorite episode and what have you changed from listening to it? And if they don't have a follow-up to that and they'll say, oh, I just found it, that's not as exciting as someone that says, Jeff, you changed my life. And I'm like, calm down. Like, what do you mean?
Calm down.
And they'll say, well, you talked about recruiting, you talked about lead gen, whatever the thing was. And now we've tripled our sales. We were able to buy a new house. My wife quit her job. Like, I want to hear about how their life changed. That's what fuels my soul. That's what gets me excited. And if I can do that while making money, there's nothing better. And I was actually, and people listening might think this too, and then we need to wrap up, but I was feeling underutilized. I had a team of 30 people and I knew the content that I had access to from my own personal experience selling was something the whole world needed. I could feel it. And I started getting all these interviews. We went from 70 to 425 sales in 3 years. And I was getting on all the shows, Toby Salgado, Josh Smith, Pat Hyben, getting all these interviews. And I'm like, I think I have something really special, Matt. And that's when you and I partnered to launch the podcast. And I was like, I want to have my own podcast so I can share all of these strategies with others. And we continued to grow and went from 70 to 700 sales in 6 years, fastest growing team in history, using the strategies that we had found and curated found a lot. It's a lot of R&D, rip and duplicate. But the reason wasn't to just go make tons and tons of money. It was to help create impact and success for a lot of other people. And I know that was your intent as well of writing the book. So Matt was invited to keynote at our upcoming event, June 1st through the 3rd of 2022. We are hosting the Team Building Summit. I think this is our 3rd or 4th event in downtown Omaha, Nebraska. It is a sexy place to visit. The downtown area is awesome. We still have some roads that are brick roads, really neat old town kind of feel. And we have a brand new Marriott event center that they just put in. And we have room blocks for super inexpensive. It's under $200 a room per night. We have a special discount code. It's $100 off a $400 ticket. So it makes it $300. Use the code podcast if you choose to come check out the event. You can go to the teambuildingsummit.com or growwithers.com to get a link for the upcoming event. But we'd love to see you guys there. Matt, talk a little bit about how someone can find this book. And if they were to come to the event and you are speaking, how they could just buy a signed copy from you in Omaha.
Oh, you're good. Yeah, Jeff is going to pressure me to do this. I hadn't planned.
I want Matt to do book
the book at all.
Yeah, I want a line like when you go see Santa. I want a line up to Matt, and I'm going to get in line. I want you to sign my book.
All right. So you should go. I'm going to talk about how to free up time and energy while your team is in growth mode. So it'll be a fun conversation. We'll do some Q&A afterwards as well. I had a blast doing that at a smaller scale at your event in Long Beach. And we got some really interesting follow-up questions, and it led to a very cool Q&A session where we dive deep on stuff that I didn't expect to get into. So I'm looking forward to doing that again. In the meantime, if you want to grab the book, you can go to Amazon, or you can actually go to just getmicrofamous.com and connect up. And if you jump in the email list, you get a digital copy emailed to you for free. Unfortunately, I can't sign that. But we'll see about the signed copies. I don't know if I can swing that. We'll see.
Come on, just a couple. At least 3.
Well, at least one for you. Yeah.
Oh, well, I'll auction mine off then. So at least you guys know if you come, there's an option of getting a book. Matt, you've been great. Of course, we'll have many more of these in the future. Thank you again, Matt, publicly for helping us get to this point to help influence and impact the lives of thousands, if not tens of thousands, millions, trillions. If you are enjoying this podcast, you're enjoying the content and you want others to be able to find it as well, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes on the podcast app that you use. Give us a shout out, give Matt a shout out for the episode today, and hope to see you June 1st or the 3rd in Omaha. Again, go to the teambuildingsummit.com or growwithers.com. And until next time, thank you again, Matt.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it.